Mineral Point is this really interesting place, and I think it has a really special energy about it.
When people come in, they say, what is it about Mineral Point that they can't quite put their finger on it? It's just a special place.
People are passionate about what they do. People are living their dreams.
It's not like anywhere else.
Hello and welcome to Discover Wisconsin.
This is an anthem for those who look for more and never say they've seen it all. Windows down, let's take a ride. The good land's great tonight.
Mineral Point is said to be where Wisconsin began. It was a mining town in the early 1800s, but today it's a small town with creative flair unlike anywhere else.
Tucked away in the rolling hills of the Driftless area, Mineral Point almost feels like the setting of a fairy tale.
You want one or two?
While each town is unique in Wisconsin, there's no place quite like Mineral Point. It really is very magical. It's very artistic. There's this sort of creative culture that I don't think you can get elsewhere. Around every corner there's a story, there's someone worth meeting, there's beautiful cafes and shops and wonderful historic sites like Pendarvis.
Pendarvis is a restored Cornish mining community here in Mineral Point. We have about 12 buildings. In front of us here was the mine hill that they were doing a lot of the mining activity. So they lived on this street. So when you come here to visit Pendarvis, we have these homes that you can go through. Pendarvis is here today because of two men named Bob Neal and Edgar Hellam, and they created this great partnership and they started restoring some of these homes here. When Bob and Edgar first saved these buildings, people thought that they were kind of insane to be doing it because they were really starting this during the height of the Great Depression.
What does Pendarvis mean to the Mineral Point community?
In 1971, Bob and Edgar's legacy actually led to Mineral Point becoming the first community in the state to be put on the National Register of Historic Places. And really what they did here saved Mineral Point. There's no mining left in the town, but what there is are artists and galleries and really big historic preservation movement.
I think one of the really cool things about Mineral Point is the folks here are not just preserving buildings just to preserve them and to look at them. They're restoring them so that people like you and I can come visit them and walk through them and actually experience these historic places. One spot that really stands out in my mind is a historic mansion called Orchard Lawn. There was actually a wrecking crew on site years ago about to tear down the entire place until some people here in Mineral Point showed up with a check and decided they were going to save it and open it up to the public. There's even a concert series every single summer called Jammin' on the Porch, which offers some concerts on the grounds all summer long.
Learn how to start your own historical adventure in Mineral Point at discoverwisconsin.com. Next, Marie puts her own craftsmanship to the test, and later, we're discovering the story behind a Mineral Point staple. Stay with us.
We're exploring Mineral Point today on Discover Wisconsin.
It's pretty clear when you visit Mineral Point that it's got this amazing, thriving art scene. The artists, musicians, the people that settle here, they set up in these beautiful historic buildings that they've refurbished and they've made their own. And these artists live, work, and sell right here in Mineral Point.
The art community here in Mineral Point has evolved over decades. Artists moved here because it was a very accepting and tolerant community at that time. We have a very eclectic mixture of people with varied backgrounds that has developed a collage here that you just won't see anywhere else. The restoration that has been taking place in conjunction with the artist community that has been evolving here. We're stripping the paint off and bringing back buildings almost monthly, it seems like now. For people that come and visit Mineral Point, it's a hidden welcome thing. There's artists working in the back rooms that would welcome you with open hands. You have to be exploratory here.
I'm a painter, mostly, and a woodcarver. I like it because the tools are entirely different. The only thing that unites those two is my use of color. When I'm working on a piece, I feel really engaged. There's a whole process, both in painting and in wood carving. They take different routes, but ultimately, what I have in my mind ends up as a finished product. I've always hoped that people get joy out of it, you know, and people use the word whimsical all the time, and that's wonderful. I mean, there's not enough whimsy in our current world, so I think I will be making my art until I can't. A lot of people have passion, but for other reasons they follow other paths. And I think when you follow your passion, you're the happiest.
I love pottery, the way it brings a little more warmth and depth to everyday life. I love the whole process. I love the actual making, the physical making of the pots. I first started wood firing in my apprenticeship, and I fell in love with it right away. You can see the flame path coming through. So all the pots are affected by the wood vapors as they burn. When we first moved here, we hired a semi-truck to drive all our bricks up. We built a kiln shed in the kiln, and we had our house, and so we opened up an exterior door into an extra spare bedroom and set a gallery up in there. I love to explain the process to people and show them around.
One of the greatest things about Mineral Point is these artists are super eager to teach you about their craft. And sometimes you can even get hands-on experience like that at Mayday Press.
Design to me is very important. I really enjoy aesthetics. I love crafting visual messages. Printing is kind of the way I can use design in a way that makes me feel happy and share it with other people. If you're interested, you can do it too, and you can learn about printing at Mayday Press. I think it's really important to share this craft with people because letterpress printing was basically made obsolete by the advent of the computer. And I think there's nothing more rewarding than making something and saying, I made this.
I get to choose my own font, right?
Yep.
All right, I think I'm gonna go with Karnak.
Okay, that sounds good.
Is that a good one?
That 14-point Karnak medium would be good.
Working with May was so great. She showed me the entire process from start to finish. Yep. I got to pick out my own letters, go over it to the other machine and roll on the ink. It was so hands-on, it was so much fun, and my card turned out wonderful.
Find a free itinerary packed with things to do and see in Mineral Point at discoverwisconsin.com. Coming up, find out why Mineral Point is on the map for filmmakers from around the world. We'll be right back. Discover Wisconsin is back exploring Mineral Point, an artful oasis. One of the best ways to really get a sense of the true Mineral Point experience is during the Fall Art Tour every October. Mineral Point is one of a handful of communities where artists open up their galleries and studios, so visitors can get a behind-the-scenes look at how they create their work.
It's wonderful to have people come in and work, and people can ask questions and wander through the building. We loved the fact that this old building was still here and that we could make our home and workspace in it, and we love to share it with the people who walk in the door. It's just such a high energy, positive event for I think everybody on the tour.
We bought this building in January of 2012 and opened the doors October 15th of 2015. I did not know how much people enjoy seeing how the looms work until I opened. So it's been a huge leap for me. I've been weaving professionally since 1984. There are so many different kinds of fibers to work with, so it's a tactile delight and a visual delight, and it's a mental challenge when you're working out different kinds of patterns and how they're going to hang, and there's always something more to explore.
What I love about the art scene here in Mineral Point is there's everything from painting to sculpture to pottery, even the visual arts. And Mineral Point is home to the Driftless Film Festival, which is a celebration of independent film held at the historic Mineral Point Opera House.
The Driftless Film Festival is held every year in the Mineral Point Opera House. It's a 102-year-old fully restored opera house in downtown Mineral Point. I think restoration and renovation are such a huge part of our community, and having this beautiful old vaudeville theater in downtown Mineral Point is wonderful. The Driftless Film Festival focuses on Midwestern and independent documentaries, feature films, and short films. We also have a short film program for students. Last year we had a submission from the Middle East, one from India, some from California and New York, in addition to a huge amount from Chicago and the Midwest. So I think it's wonderful to be able to help provide a different art form to a town that was already so rich in many other art forms.
Honestly, this is an incredibly Wisconsin movie. 95%, maybe more, was shot in Door County. So there's no better place to show this movie than in Wisconsin.
No matter what kind of art piques your interest, you can really get in touch with your creative side at Shake Rag Alley, an arts education center housed within a village of historic buildings.
Shake Rag Alley Center for the Arts is a nonprofit arts and crafts workshop center. Our campus is about 2.5 acres. It's built on a hillside. We have a stream that runs through it, and it's quite bucolic. This was a mining community that started in the 1820s. We do have a building on the property from 1828. That's the oldest building in Mineral Point that still exists, as far as we know. We were developed to do offerings of creative endeavors to people of all stripes from all places. It's really allowing people to unlock their creativity and experience firsthand the idea of making art or participating in theater or music. Everybody who comes in is happy. They're going to do something that's creative and they feel good about making those things.
Shake Rag Alley is so incredibly charming and unique. When you first walk in, it feels like you step back in time. I actually got to participate in a blacksmithing class, which was super exciting. We were making a rain gauge holder. We were trying to make it look fancy, so we had to do a lot of turns and twists with the rods. You got to go back to the fire and heat it up a lot. So there are a lot of steps, a lot of intricate steps, but it was a lot of fun and a great learning experience, and I would love to do it again.
And there you have it, a rain gauge holder.
Check out more behind-the-scenes photos from our time in Mineral Point at discoverwisconsin.com. Coming up, we're discovering the rather delicious works of art in Mineral Point. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Mineral Point, right here on Discover Wisconsin.
No matter when you visit Mineral Point, you will be enchanted by this town. But just when you thought it couldn't get any more idyllic, the holidays arrive. It looks like the kind of small town you would see on the front of a postcard. Every December, the first Saturday of the month actually, there's an event in Mineral Point called Candlelight Shopping. You're going to see hundreds of candles lined up along High Street in downtown Mineral Point. All the shops and restaurants and galleries actually stay open a little bit later during Candlelight Shopping. There's also carolers who come around singing, so it really is sort of that event that heightens every holiday sense imaginable, from what you're listening to what you're seeing, to what you're actually experiencing. I think an event like Candlelight Shopping really gets to the core of what makes Mineral Point so special, and that's the attention to detail that makes every experience here unique and memorable, whether it's painting or pottery or even pizza.
There's a Chinese proverb, show me perfection and you draw a circle, and that's what pizza is. Every single pizza needs to be perfectly balanced with all the ingredients throughout it. There's definitely an art to it. I started in the pizza business in a pizza place in Milwaukee. I'm making traditional Milwaukee pizza.
We're kind of looking to open another pizza place, definitely wood fire, and this place popped up.
The oven's what got me. As soon as I saw the oven, I was like, this is the place. Something about doing a pizza in a wood-fired oven, it connects you to the pizza a little bit more than just putting it in the oven and then waiting 15 minutes and taking it out. You actually have to tend to it. There's so much more involved in it, so you're really involved in every single pizza that goes out.
We use so many farmers from within 25 miles of here. So we really have this amazing ability to highlight the talent of so many people in this community by getting it on plates. Popolo is the Italian word for people, and when we were putting together an idea for a restaurant, it was about people, and it was about feeding them dinner. So Popolo is a place where people can just enjoy a good dinner.
And for an authentic Mineral Point treat, stop in at the Red Rooster Cafe for one of its famous pasties, a local tradition with a historical tie to the area.
Pasty is a Cornish meal, and it's meat and potatoes and onions and rutabagas baked slowly between two crusts. The Cornish miners came here and settled and mined, and the wives would make the pasty to send down into the mines with them. And that was why the edges were crimped, because they wouldn't be able to wash their hands, so they would eat at the edges and then throw that away. And they always said a good pasty was one that if it fell down the mine, it didn't fall apart and break.
Your culinary experience in Mineral Point isn't complete without grabbing a drink at Brewery Creek Inn and Brew Pub.
We do more standard ales, German ales as well as English-style ales. When we walked through the building, it was just like a brand new 1854 warehouse building. So there was no heating, no plumbing, no wiring, had a dirt floor. And we both looked at it and said, yeah, we can do something with this. The general concept of the room was kind of a Wisconsin tavern meets British pub. And you can kind of feel the different elements of that.
After more than a year of restoration, Brewery Creek opened as a brew pub and one of Mineral Point's many guest houses.
If you are going to come to a town as unique as Mineral Point, you need to stay in a place that is just as special. You are not going to find a lot of hotels. A lot of the guest houses here in Mineral Point are actually older homes that have been restored, such as Moses Stronghouse.
The Moses Stronghouse was built in 1839 and an addition was put on in 1865. We've owned the house since 2010, started actively restoring it back in 2013. And part of the fun of doing that is as we began taking things out of the home that had been added later, we were finding many different discoveries around the house's original character. So Mariah, we are in one of our most popular guest rooms. This actually used to be the summer kitchen for the house.
So this is definitely not your typical hotel room.
Absolutely not. I think actually that's one of the joys of having a guest house. You allow the people that come to visit to be part of the history of the house. And the experience is different for each individual.
Moses Stronghouse is fascinating. I can't even begin to imagine the amount of work that went into the restoration project here. And they really worked hard at restoring, certain details and also adding some modern luxuries and some modern conveniences along the way as well. You can tell that Mineral Point in general really cares about restoring the history here in this town. This is really where Wisconsin began, and the people who live here 100% embrace that. I don't know if enough people know about the magic of Mineral Point. It is beautiful, but it's full of art and culture as well, plus tons of history. But most importantly, it's full of passionate, creative, super interesting people who just know how to enjoy life.
Discover Wisconsin is the state's leading media brand. Continue the adventure at discoverwisconsin.com and stream episodes on YouTube and Roku TV.